A very warm welcome to everyone today. My name is John Mitchell. We're going to be talking about why IFC was created, the business mission of buildingSMART, the international organisation that develops the open standard, and we're going to give you an overview of how IFC works. This is not a technical presentation. The following presentation is. We describe it here. We'll give you a reminder at the end. We want to just acknowledge the enormous interest we've had both in Australia and New Zealand and across the world, another 30 countries. There might be one or two people, but it just shows, I think, how IFC is becoming a very important element of construction industry business. So where do we start? The context of traditional practice. For those who've been watching, you'll know that not only have we not improved, we've actually reduced productivity over the last 30 years. And the construction sector has been the slowest sectors of all to adopt digital technologies. Why are we even talking about this? Because the quality of design and documentation in the construction process is one of the key blockages in getting better productivity and better quality. And we noticed that although quite a bit of the industry is adopting BIM in their own business, that's not enough. You've got to be able to collaborate and solve the coordination problem. And because we can't share design models, this is another blockage. Where do most of our errors occur? This, by the way, was indicated in a Engineers Australia report in Queensland in 2001 or something. Big structure and HVAC pipe services, small and fiddly equipment, where we have to get down to very close coordination and make sure it's particularly correct. And of course today, how do we support linear infrastructure, precinct modelling, which is looking at a larger urban scale, and smart cities? How can we address all of these issues? Well, BIM, building information modelling, or digital modelling, if we use it more generically, what is its potential? Well, we've got robust geometry. That is proper 3D geometric representations. Objects in a digital model have properties and are extensible. So there are default properties, but we can expand them according to the need or the collaboration we need. Objects have semantic richness, and one of the important points about IFC is its global dictionary, global terminology. We all talk the same language. The digital model integrates information. We can have reference to other data, and finally, we can do this over the whole life cycle. So we've moved from just away from the design and construction process to supporting asset and facility management and operations. And that's where most clients have the biggest benefit. So what are the benefits of digital modelling? Well, the principal benefit is this accurate geometrical representation. We couldn't do clash detection without it. We couldn't have high quality visualization without it. And in its integrated environment, we now are able to interrogate with great fidelity. This leads to faster and more effective processes. We can share information easily, which can be validated and value added and reused. If we share a common terminology, we're always talking about the same object, and that means we can share information easier. We can produce better design. Clients can understand through the 3D visualization, simulation can determine performance, and although that's a modest part of the business today using BIM, that's where one of the next major steps will be. We can have much better understanding of whole of life costs and environmental data. Environmental performance can be predictable. And again, although this is a modest part of the current business, it's a very important element and one that the industry is very close to moving to strongly. Another advantage is greater production quality. And this, both in terms of traditional 2D documentation, is the first benefit. But by production, we also mean manufacturing and assembly. So now we can use the same data derived from the BIM model in the production process. But this all leads to better customer service. Proposals are understood through accurate visualization, I mentioned that before, better lifecycle data, and again, integration of planning and implementation processes. Because of this, government, industry, manufacturers have a common data protocol. We're not inventing in silos, we're sharing a common meaning. So, how did BIM and IFC all start? buildingSMART International was formally started in the middle 90s. It's comprised an international headquarters and regions all across the world. The Australasia chapter is part of the chapters, but you'll see there that we have very strong representation in Europe, in Asia, in North America, and in the Middle East. What's our vision? Not a local vision, but a global vision, a universal basis for process improvement in the construction and facilities management industries. Process improvement has been one of the weakest elements of the whole industry. Our mission: to define, promote, publish specifications for sharing data, so that we support all of these processes. And our deliverables are the standards around IFC in both the IFC step format and IFC XML. What is buildingSMART Australasia? We're a chapter. We're a not-for-profit industry organisation. We rely on membership, subscription, and our event incomes. We have a focus on technical standards. Our goal is to work with many industry groups in Australia and New Zealand to adopt and implement openBIM interoperability. And that's encouraging our local vendors to implement openBIM interchange, and also to work with clients, designers, contractors, manufacturers in understanding how IFC works and how they can implement it for their benefit in their businesses. Our supporters, we have Austroads, we have gold members, CIMIC and Autodesk, and we have our silver members, John Holland, BIM Consulting, Georeferencing. All of these companies we have a special thanks for their financial and physical support. We have a large number of members, or I shouldn't say large, we have an increasing number of members, and this gives you a bit of a profile of the people in the industry who already support us directly. What is an IFC? So IFC, if you think it in relation to object model exchange, we've talked about data exchange, walls, doors, windows, objects in the building that we're considering. DXF is the graphic entity exchange, line, arc, circle. So there's a big difference. We're talking about objects, not 2D graphical representations. IFC is non-proprietary. It's for use globally throughout the entire industry by any, and we'd like to say every software vendor in this industry. And IFC, especially, as I've indicated earlier, offers a higher level of communication language, so that we all talk the same thing, even in different languages. So a feature of the IFC standard is that we can share the definition of an object in multiple languages. What does openBIM look like? Here's a large hospital project in Queensland, a typical large BIM project. Here's another example that's come from the BSI International BIM Awards. Norway won this project, and here we're showing the use cases in the collaboration and how it was adopted for that. And that's just in the competition, some 80 use cases were indicated to show the level of maturity that's approaching in the BIM technology. And this final example shows how we solve a problem called georeferencing. How do we understand a building that we're going to construct physically on a site versus the object that we might see on a map? And this is a little extension of the IFC standard recently adopted. So this leads us to, why is openBIM beneficial? Well, the common issue is that there are so many softwares about, and writing interfaces to all of these softwares is just impossible. So the benefits of openBIM, it's a common protocol that allows multidisciplinary digital interoperability, new collaboration processes. For those who've been using BIM, this is one of the biggest advantages. We can now share models rather than drawings, and this improves productivity, identifies problems quickly, all leading to better quality. I'll mention this point about common terminology. It's very important, and it's one of the big challenges to expanding the use of IFC. We can validate and audit models cleverly by using the computer and the semantics of the data. This leads to less errors, more reliable construction timetables, better cost control. Better cost control because we've been able to estimate more accurately at the beginning. Clients and owners and users don't have to worry about proprietary formats. So you don't have to buy a bit of software because it is the software that your client or your partner use. IFC is available in all vendor software, and we should focus on the information rather than the particular format that has been used. Governments and agencies can be confident that adopting the openBIM approach is international best practice. And finally, we achieve another goal which hasn't been apparent, but archiving, asset history, heritage record keeping. This is now increasingly important. For example, in hospital projects, where there's big turnover in the asset, how do we commission new work? How do we know what was done originally? How can we exploit the information in our models to improve processes, operations and management? How do we use IFC? So what do the IFC standards comprise? Well, there are 5 major parts. IDM describes processes. If we're going to get quality and reliability in exchanging information, we've got to understand the processes that we use. The IFC Foundation class is the data schema. It transports the information. BCF is a collaboration technology that supports change coordination. We can take little snapshots of models that will be multidisciplinary, that capture the error or the issue or the problem to be resolved. And BCF is a smart, small data exchange protocol for coordination. IFD defines terminology. We all think specifications are the place where we use terminology. Well, we need it in our models as well. And the final one is one of the more important practical parts of IFC, called model view definitions, or MVDs. These translate the process we've defined above into the technical requirements. What actual information we need to solve those problems. So this leads to a question of what is in the model. On the left, you have a traditional 2D drawing. But IFC is a model. So we visualize the model accurately, easily, and then we're able to interrogate and understand the data in the model because it's all part of the IFC schema. We understand the object structure, we understand the relationships. This space is on this building level with this name, of this building with its name, on this site with its site ID, on this project. And this structure is the backbone of how we understand information. So model definitions have been in place for quite a while. The IFC 2x3 version of the standard developed what was called the coordination view. This is a view that is widely used in the building space, representing the key disciplines in that space. In IFC 4, the next version of our standard, which is starting to be used and has significant improvements, we have another coordination. We have another view definition called the design transfer view. This is underway at the moment and is aiming towards a higher quality information content that would allow other consultants to take that model data and use it effectively in a new project or in an extension of the original project. And the IFC 4 reference view is largely common to the coordination view. Other model view definitions are in place. FM, with COBE as a part, model setup, I mentioned that before, quantity takeoff scheduling, there's much more detail about this. So here we see a graphical representation of basically architecture, structure, and building services. So in each of those disciplines, they have each of their objects and their objects that they work with. So the coordination view enables these three key industry disciplines to undertake what's called clash detection, which has long been cited as one of the greatest benefits so far in IFC. And the reason why most builders like using BIM is because they know that their consultants on the whole project can do much better clash detection, which leads to all the outcomes we've suggested before. So model view definitions, here's some more examples. Coordination view shows the key bit of their structure coming out of an architectural model. Here's a structural analysis view, different objects representing the same discipline. And then we might have a thermal analysis view where we've got spaces, the properties against those spaces, their occupancy, the wall elements needed for the transmittance, geographic location, all those sorts of things. So what's the history of the IFC standards? Originated in '94, in 2013 became an ISO standard, 16739. In Australia and New Zealand, IFC was adopted as an Australian standard in 2017 and currently underway under enormous global support. We've got an extension for bridges, which is almost ready for release. This includes alignment for linear assets. So the current work going on internationally has a big focus on infrastructure extensions, and these are the emerging extensions in IFC 4. So we've got road, rail, ports and waterways. Road and rail are well underway, a lot of Asian involvement as well as European in those projects. And then we have emerging extensions for landscape, utilities, urban space and tunnels. So you see the scope of work going on at the moment is extraordinarily comprehensive, and we've moved away from a single building view about BIM to a much larger urban representation of urban landscape and cities. So why openBIM now? And of course this is particular for Australia and New Zealand, but it might have some merit in our other global attendees. So on the eastern side of Australia, where we have the major population states, Queensland, Victoria and New South Wales, they're all underway with enormous infrastructure projects. And after several years of discussion, a group called the Australasian BIM Advisory Board, in concert with these three states, have adopted openBIM as the way of sharing data for for integration with those agencies' common data environments. And this has given a big impetus to use of openBIM, and we believe buildingSMART Australia is very pleased to see this development because it's providing leadership across Australia and New Zealand. We're going to show you, next slide will show you the Queensland mandate. Transport for New South Wales has been the visionary leader of digital engineering. They've just released the second version of their digital engineering technical protocols. They've developed an expert body inside the department, and they're providing a strong leadership across the whole of Australia. ABAB is a national body of government agencies supported by a technical secretariat of which buildingSMART is a member, and their goal is to drive consistent approaches. So we don't want a state or an agency-based information standard. We want a consistent, open standard that everyone understands. We can all do business better in any state, in any place, but we all do it better because we're all working in the same information space. In Victoria, VDAS recently established, just in the last year, the Victorian Digital Asset Strategy, also now on behalf of the Victorian Government, driving an adoption of openBIM in infrastructure engineering. Here's the example of the Queensland openBIM policy, published in November 2018 and formalised just this year, beginning of this year. So what do they want? They want openBIM to enable interoperability and interconnectivity, and they also want information that they can manage securely over the life of infrastructure assets. And increasingly, government is starting to address the problem of how do they store long-term asset data in formats that can be accessible, and IFC meets that specification. Our near final slides. Here's the Transport for New South Wales open data format overview. Contractors on a project use their own, they've chosen their own application softwares and technologies, and Transport for New South Wales will require open data exchange through Innate, the software that they've adopted in Transport for New South Wales, to store all of the, these are very crucial assets in their own data repositories. And finally, we see some recommendations. So how can the industry prepare? Well, we have to get used to using integrated common data environments. We have to understand better how to output and import, in fact, in open data formats. That's a role that buildingSMART Australasia is particularly committed to. They want to develop design rules libraries, so they want more intelligent adoption of design processes. They also want to push into manufactured assembly. We see that in the Australian building services industry. We have a couple of exemplar organisations that are already doing excellent work in that supply chain, and it's a role model that we should be able. BIM-MEPOS is the organisation doing it. We should see in them a role model for many of our other supply chains. And finally, education. Education has been lagging in the TAFE and university sector. It's being taught at a very casual level, but we need to do better, and buildingSMART has already started to help organisations accredit their programs for teaching BIM and DE, and also we offer our BIM Creds program where you can get a verification of the level of knowledge that you might have about BIM that we believe is an important criteria for your employers and your project partners to adopt. So that's the IFC overview with John Merchant, who's going to give a webinar that will focus on how to import and export IFC in various applications. 17th of June, register here at the link that you're seeing in front of you. We'd encourage you to absolutely join that. And if you're in Australia, please consider participating in more of our programs. We've got a very good program coming up. We've got other events that we haven't got on our calendar yet, so keep a watchful eye out. And for those who are international, I encourage you to join your local organisations if you're not already. And if you want to have conversations with us, we're pleased to facilitate that conversation.